You have so much to be thankful for. I just want to thank the Lord for, He's not in here right now, but my son, just in the last couple of weeks here, it's just been just really good. My relationship with him for so many years, we were not together. And so for him to just have that quality time now with him is just great. It's just a blessing beyond all description. And being able to minister to him and be able to talk to him and about the things of the Lord is even a double blessing, triple blessing. And he is listening, and he's being open and being receptive. And that's just awesome. I mean, they say that, if you don't win no one else but your family, you save the world. Think about that. Noah saved his family. He preached for 120 years. His success rate wasn't very good. Amen? Didn't get too many people saved. But his family, he was able to reach his family. I mean, you have to think about that too, to be Noah and to be able to get your sons to build an ark. They were, I don't know how many years they were in building that thing, but it was not an easy project to build a boat with all hand tools. There was no craftsmen, no skillmen, there was no drills and power tools and air guns, and they didn't have none of that. All they had was simply just some big old wooden mallet, big wooden pegs, and what really did they have? They didn't have a lot to work with. But to get his sons, all three of them, to work with him on an idea that it was going to rain. And it had never rained before. Ever. In Genesis chapter, I don't know if this is where the Holy Spirit's leading me right now, but let's just go there right now and see where we go and see what happens. Because where I was thinking of going, but let's go ahead and go there. I just went right in there. It says in chapter 6, verse 5, says, God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Isn't that awesome? Now, it speaks about Noah being upright and righteous and a just man. It says right in the next verse, verse 9, he says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations. And Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And behold, even I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, wherein is the breath of life from under heaven, and everything that is in the earth shall die. But with thee will I establish my covenant, and thou shalt come into the ark, thou and thy sons, and thy wife, and thy sons' wives with thee. Go to chapter 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, come now and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. You know that Noah, he really had a lot to do. You think about that. I'm reading through this, and one of the things that jumps out at me is that he had a lot of details There was a lot of details that what God had wanted him to do. I mean, there was a lot. I mean, he had to build that boat. Then on top of it, there was 2 of every unclean, then 7 of every clean. In pairs, they were to come into that boat, come into that ark. He had to get his sons to do what? To work, to help him build that boat. Now, I mean, you know, that's a job in itself. It's a job in itself. Imagine trying to get all your children to help you to do something. Verse 22 of chapter 6. And I believe this is what God seen in Noah, that he found grace in his eyes. 22 says, thus did Noah, according to all that God commanded him. So did he. Now I know that there's a lot of people that like to talk about doing things. But Noah wasn't that kind of person. He was a person that when he was told to do something, he did what? He was a doer. He was a doer. And I believe that's what God's seen in Noah. Noah may not have won a lot of people to the Lord, but God seen in Noah that was a greater value than all of his ability to win the whole. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to win the whole world by his preaching. He couldn't get anybody to get in the ark. But the one people that he could get in the ark was he could get his sons. He was able to reach his sons. He was able to reach his family. And God seen that this Noah was willing to do what God said to do. Period. No reason. Think about that. You're going to build an ark here. We would hope that we can maybe, convince some other people to build an ark. Do you think that Noah preached during that time? I believe he did. I believe he truly preached to people. He talked about it was going to rain. It did not rain. In chapter, I believe it's 2 is where it says that. In chapter 2 in verse 5 and 6 it says, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew, for the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth. And there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. Up to Noah's day, it had never rained. The thing that we see, all the little raindrops falling down on the ground, that didn't happen before Noah's day. That was something foreign. That never happened. They could see the fog, the dew on the ground. They could see the mist. They could see all those things. But this preacher, Noah, was preaching that it was going to do what? It was going to rain. And they laughed him to scorn. They thought he was a madman. But one thing that God seen in Noah is that he was a man that was willing to what? Do. He was a man that was willing to work with his hands. He was a man that was willing to go and build an ark. He was a man that was willing to get his family and to get his family to move into what God has called him. Look, that's important today. I think that's really important. I think that if we don't reach out to our family more than anything else, we need to reach out to our family. We've got brothers, we've got sisters, we've got uncles, we've got cousins, we've got nephews, we've got nieces, we've got sons, and we've got daughters, and we've got all these people we've got grandchildren in our lives, and really, are we really reaching out to them? Are we really reaching out to them? Noah knew the value of family life. He must have had a good, strong family upbringing with them boys, because they were willing to work. They were willing to, even this madman preacher Noah, who was saying it was going to rain, and them boys were saying, I ain't ever heard of rain. My dad's is a lunatic. I bet you that they had some thoughts like that from time to time. They must have thought, my dad's crazy. My dad must be a lunatic. He's got me out here. I could be over there in town making good money and building my own name and building my own house. But he's got me out here in the backwoods of nowhere. There ain't nobody here. Nothing here. And he's got me building a boat because he says it's going to rain. Noah had faith. He had faith. God had spoken to his heart. He knew that God had spoken to his heart. But one thing I believe was true is this, is that even though what he was saying may have in so many ways sounded mad and crazy, they knew he was not crazy. They knew that he must have lived in such a way, Noah, that his sons must have reverenced him and respected him, because that's a far cry from most fathers today, is that they don't live in such an example, in such a way that they have credibility with their children. That if their father was to move upon their sons and say something that most wouldn't believe today, they wouldn't believe them. There must have been some credibility about Noah's life. There must have been a real God kind of relationship with that them boys could see in their father. They could see Jesus. They could see God in Noah's life. They could see that he offered up that sacrifice every day. Back then it was offering up a burnt. They put a lamb up there on that offering. And I'm sure he probably brought one daily. Brought one before the Lord. And they must have watched him day in and day out come before the Lord and just worship the Lord, while everyone else was acting the fool. While everyone else was doing everything else under the sun, having their fun, having their enjoyment, yet Noah was always over here. He was serving the Lord. He feared the Lord. He feared God. Now I believe he was one who knew Enoch, who walked with God, because the timeline fits. And this is a timeline where the population, everybody would have had a chance to know the story of Adam, would have knew the story of being kicked out of the garden. There's not anybody that didn't know about this God. But all they knew was that this God had kicked man out of the garden. They didn't know that God was a loving God. They thought of God as just a God who just got angry and kicked us out of the garden, and now we've got to work and till and by the sweat of the brow. They didn't know about Jesus. They didn't know about how he loved God, so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. They didn't understand that love of God. All they understood was that Adam, Eve, they messed up and they got kicked out. That was all they knew about this God. But Noah, in spite of the fact that, I really believe that he knew Enoch. He knew some of them. He may have even, Adam had told, I'm sure Adam must have told some stories to the sons and the grandchildren, and that men and women must have came by old Adam's house, and Adam would tell them about the days when he walked in the garden, and how everything was all good, and how it was just, there wasn't a sticker in my foot. It was beautiful. It was a wonderful place, and they knew that story. And Enoch, he had such a relationship that he walked with God to the point and prayed with God and had such a relationship that one day he was just walking with him and he disappeared. He was taken. He was taken. No one knew about God. People knew about God.